All right, what's up today? I'm joined by Thune, and we're going to be talking about defensive creep in Dragonflight. So, one of the big things that Dragonflight did just as an expansion was they reworked all the talents for all the specializations. They added in unique and robust talent trees, and a lot of them got a lot of defensive value in the class tree specifically for a lot of specializations, creating, I would say, the largest disparity I've ever seen defensively between top to bottom specializations, and now it has created certainly a weird situation. How are you feeling about the whole entire, defensive creep situation, Thune?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the issue that I have with the defensives currently is the like really strong passive nodes that you get throughout the talent tree.
Yeah.
Because like you still have your normal defensives that you had for a long time. A couple of classes gained like one additional defensive or something, but like yeah, whenever you're gaining like 20% HP or something, like that's really strong, and I don't think people realize just how
Eh,
powerful that is.
yeah, I
Oh yeah,
mean,
it's literally 20% more HP. Nice.
veteran of the third war and sanctified plates, I think, are probably pound for pound the strongest passive nodes in the game. A lot of classes and a lot of specializations just got a bunch of active defensives. I think that monk, for example, probably has the most active defensive capability. I think they have like 4 or 5 defensives that they can press. But a lot of this comes down to, I think the defensive creep comes down to, passive nodes kind of keeping you alive. You also recently wrote an article on Wowhead talking about the problem with healing, um, just in general, and you kind of talked about how it's evolved over the expansion. And I think that one of the metrics that you actually used that was kind of interesting was the amount of overhealing that we're seeing from raid to raid. And Amir Drasil and Antorus are like by far the highest overheal amount. And Antorus was, I mean, that was just like the end of Legion, right? The power creep, that expansion just on healers was crazy. Amir Drasil, it's a little bit different, but kind of a similar story, yeah?
Yeah, we gained like a little bit more throughput even after nerfs. Classes were still ahead of where we were last patch.
Okay.
And we gained a lot more item levels this year as well. So that definitely has some factor. But yeah, like in Taurus, that's when we had Blessing of Sacrifice, which was like just land hands your entire raid every like global. Disc Priest was really powerful. Shaman's
Belen's
way
Future
stronger.
Sight.
Yeah, exactly. Like and that's when you got double legendary as well. So that's why we were really powerful in Taurus. But I think we just started off way too strong. And I
Mhm.
know this is like a hot take. A lot of people had um, varying opinions on this topic, but uh, yeah, I think healing is too strong. But part of that is also just the defensive creep, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like I think defensives add to the snowball that we are like, and we're rapidly rolling down the hill of like we're way too powerful and we need to like ease back a little bit.
So one of the issues too, whenever healers are too strong, is that Blizzard then struggles to be able to kill players, right? So one of the tools that Blizzard typically has to kill players is, either ambient rot damage, you're bleeding out over time. Think about the tier that has the lowest amount of overheal on average of the raid, which is Castle Nathria. And if you go back and look at some of these fights here, you have Sludge Fist at 14.03% overhealing. Basically, you were taking constant damage. With overhealing being about at this 40% mark, the only way that Blizzard has had to be able to kill players, and they've kind of shown this the entire expansion, is one shots. And this was, I mean, I remember first pulling Razageth. The first time you pull that boss, you almost get one shot immediately by the circles that go off, and you're like, okay, so that's how it's going to be. And so basically, we've entered a situation where healers are healing to sustain players, but a lot of the mechanics are going to end up being press defensives or die. And that's really present in Mythic Plus, right? Where it's like, if you don't press a defensive or have an Augavoker helping you, you're going to get 100 to 0 by something.
Yeah, it's I've noticed like there's been a lot of complaints recently, and pretty much every healing like forum is the last boss of Batal like, why did Racking Pain just one shot me on a 24? I didn't press my defensive on the very first tick and I just got one shot. It's like, I mean, that sucks, but like you kind of have to plan your defensives and stuff. And I think this is like a season that's a lot more prominent in. My take is a little different than probably most players, um, in that like you're always going to reach a point where you have to press your defensives. You're going to die,
Yeah.
and you're going to hit like the one shot nature of Mythic Plus just
I mean,
because of infinite scaling,
got a
right? But
website.
like
Look at this.
yeah, and this is I saw this on Reddit today, I think. But yeah, like I feel like you hit that mark a lot earlier this season, and uh, yeah, it's just I feel like we're getting burstier and burstier and burstier damage patterns, and it's really scary.
Yeah. I mean, in addition to that, I think the passive nodes are probably the largest problem. I think we mentioned Veteran of the Third War and Sanctified Plates earlier. But I mean, even if you go back and look at death statistics, and raid death statistics aren't exactly the same as like what you're going to be seeing in Mythic Plus, and these don't always correlate. But I think that the amount of overhealing that we're seeing in the raid, and the amount of one shots in the raid, and the amount of one shots in Mythic Plus, they do kind of correlate. And then if you look and you see, okay, cheat death, Sanctified Plates, cheat death, versatility stack warlock with a 45-second pact, like, demonology never gonna die. Cheat death that stacks versatility stack, cheat death, and then holy priest is, what are they, haste first?
I think angel form is
bugged
contributing there
it's
yeah,
bugged with Warcraft Flux. That's right.
yeah.
Okay, so I mean, if you look at the top like DPS, okay, non-tanks, if you look at the top non-tanks, they're all like cheat death havers, which is for raid obviously the strongest passive defensive that you can possibly have.
Right. Yeah, and I think there's a big disparity between, like, if you look at like a Boomkin or a Feral Druid, I'm always like watching them. Even last patch, our Boomkin would regularly be like, "Oh, I didn't know I had to bear form on the second slam of Rash Shock or whatever," and like he had to, or he was just dead. He would get literally one shot. And yeah, some classes like Boomkin can be tanky if you go bear form and you're using everything, but it's like such a different like time than if you play a DK and you just have 20% more HP, or like even Hunter now. Hunter is quite a bit tankier than a lot of people realize.
I don't think people understand that having 1 million HP is obviously
it's good,
make you
very
insane.
good. Yeah.
I mean, that's just a BM thing though, right? Because of endurance training plus the pet bonus.
Right. Yeah.
But overall, I think the defensive creep just coming into the expansion was too much. A lot of the times whenever it was added to the buttons that you press, it makes sense. And while it does make some specializations good, it becomes a problem whenever it's a lot of passive stuff. And I think the passive nodes, personally, in my opinion, probably need to go just as a whole. We've actually even seen them start buffing some of the passive nodes to get a couple of specializations in line with others. I think it was Dev and Enhance that both got node changes, right?
Yeah, both passive increases as well, I believe. So.
Yeah. But beyond that, I don't think that. So whenever we saw some of the hero trees announced, I think the Chrono Warden one was the one that got people a bit up in arms, where whenever you press hover, you gain a 30% DR for a few seconds. I think that this is probably just in the wrong direction, right? I think that this is going the wrong way, where I don't think that we need to add more defensives to players to be able to control their own destiny defensively more. I think we probably need to add less and move more of that power back into the healer.
Yeah, and I kind of want to wait to see a few more of the hero talents, but it feels like these are just, like, you could just add these at the bottom of the talent tree, and you wouldn't really tell a difference between these and regular talents to me. I don't know if that's really like hitting the goal there, but yeah, defensively, if you're getting more and more defensive, I think that's a scary road to go down.
It's just a weird dynamic because then it reduces the role of the healer. And right now, actually, one of the advantages of this is kind of weird, but it actually makes the Mythic Plus healer meta a bit better, because then it kind of creates a situation where if your healer is able to keep your group alive, throughput wise, which they are, right? Like all healers are able to keep you alive. Then you're going to be looking at which healer can prevent you from getting one shot the easiest, which up until about one keystone level beyond like bleeding edge is going to be good, which is kind of what we've been seeing with healers just as a whole, where Disc Priest is the best at the absolute world first level, but kind of all the other healers bring a lot and do a lot of good stuff. You know, you think about Restoration Shaman, not super popular, but they bring Vigor, which gives you 10% HP whenever they heal you, which is nice. You know, Resto Druid, we've seen it actually be pretty popular. They bring Mark of the Wild, which gives you stamina, or it gives you DR. You get Fortitude from Priest, which gives you force 5% stamina. Paladin gives you versatility with Diva Aura plus 1 minute sacrifice, which is obviously OP. And Mistweaver Monk is like, they give you avoidance, is kind of what they give you, right?
Yeah, I think they also give stamina now or something. They just got buffed.
Do they?
Yeah,
okay.
It's I don't know. They just keep getting buffed.
But you see that kind of situation allows all of the healers in their own way to be kind of useful because it's not based around throughput. Because if you look back in season 1, whenever it was more throughput focused, think about Last Boss Quarter Stars before it got nerfed. Think about Raging Tempest before it got nerfed. Some of the healers were really struggling to actually heal that, and you were kind of locked into, I need the healer with the best throughput. But now you don't necessarily need that. But the downside is, it's either press a defensive on your DPS or die, and the healer is kind of like a passenger role. Does this create a situation where we see no healer comps come back, you think?
I think, well,
because that's kind of the territory you enter whenever healing is this in this situation, right? And defensives are this strong. It's not healers are this weak, it's defensives are this strong.
Yeah, it's like such a weird thing because like you need a healer for like specific points of a key. And then otherwise, I think you could actually be fine without a healer. I saw someone on Twitter was like, they're baiting people with playing dev on the Dino boss of Ataldazar, and then they went out and respect whatever.
That's pretty standard, actually.
Yeah, but I think that would be more prominent if it wasn't so tedious to go in and out of a dungeon to respec and stuff. Because I think there's a lot of places in Keystones where you don't actually need a healer, and you're just like, if you just press the defensive or use really good like CC chains, you're like perfectly fine, and you just feel kind of useless as a healer. So
yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a weird situation where so in raid it's more of an issue of you're not actually contributing throughput wise, right, relative to your healing group. Where are you just pressing? Is the situation for healers right now? You just kind of press your like raid wide CD and then you're AFK until you pressed again.
Yeah, like you don't really care about what you're doing outside of cooldowns right now. At least I've been playing Disc Priest this tier. I mean, Disc has always kind of been that way, but Resto Shaman, like you just press cooldowns and then you just kind of like heal. Like, I don't know, nothing you do between cooldowns matters much. If you just go off your ERT note, then you're good, and like you can't really mess it up. So.
And then for Mythic Plus, it's kind of weird because it's just defensive layering, right? Like Mistweaver and Resto Druid, Mistweaver in particular, I don't think I've ever felt safer than whenever you play with a Mistweaver monk throughput healing wise. But then you realize that Discipline Priest, they bring enough. They're kind of a piece of shit in regards to how much throughput healing they're actually going to give you. But it's enough to kind of do the key, and you're like, oh well, I guess I'll play with the disc because they bring the most to the group.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird situation. Personally, I think that they need to really reevaluate how many defensives players have, kind of what talent trees look like defensively. And honestly, if they moved more of that defensive power into healers, like whether it be through externals or whatever, I feel like that would be a lot more manageable, at least in a better way.
Yeah, I think like slowing things down, and then it'd be nice to have a healing check in a Mythic Plus dungeon. That would be cool.
Do you like one-shot checks from Mythic Plus?
I
think everybody's a little bit different.
Yeah, I don't mind like kind of pushing you to use the defensive on certain things, like Racking Pain, for example. I personally think that's okay. Whenever there's like multiple things in the same fight that are going to one-shot you, then
over and over again.
Then it's like, okay, I'm kind of tired of this. Like, I don't want to like sit at 100% HP and then go to 1%, and then that's kind of annoying to me. But
all right, I think that's going to be it for us. Thank you so much, Thune, for joining me and helping me talk about defensive creep from a healer perspective. I feel like it was super useful. Gonna be back again in a video soon. Goodbye.
Yeah, see you.